In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to stop AI from simply agreeing with you, because right now, the most prompting advice is fundamentally wrong. Now, this is part 7 of the AI series. If part 6 was about understanding why the machine reflects your bias, well, this part is about learning how to break the mirror, because the goal isn't better prompts. The goal ultimately is better thinking, and those things are not the same. Now, most people use AI to confirm what they already think, and I think that's backwards. And let me tell you why. The smartest product teams aren't using AI to prove they're right. They're using it to discover where they're wrong. Once you see this pattern, you start to notice it everywhere. Now, pay attention to how you interact with the very next prompt that you write, because you might recognize your own confirmation bias here more than you expect. Now, let's start with the core misconception. Most people believe that the prompt creates the answer, but that's only partially true. I mean, just look at this, for example. Same AI, completely different outcome. But why was that? Because the second person didn't just ask for an asset, they provided a structural constraint whilst doing so. The context changes everything. Now, the prompt is just the visible surface layer of the process. You see, the real influence happens long before you've typed a single word. Think about a basic request. Create a landing page. Now, without context, the system has to guess, and AI is constantly guessing. Now, when you don't provide the boundaries, the model defaults to the mathematical average of its training data. And guess where its training data is if you haven't trained it? It's the internet. Generic layouts, generic hierarchy, generic UX. But you see, this is where it gets interesting. The more context you have to inject, the less chance the system has to hallucinate. Now, context isn't just a string of fill objectives. Context is structure. And framing is where your hidden assumptions quietly take control. What do I mean? So if you ask, for example, why is remote work the best way to run a company? The system builds a defense. But if you ask, why is remote work the worst way to run a company? The system then builds a critique. See, it's all in the framing. We call this the mirror effect. Now, this isn't the machine changing its mind, no. It's simply responding to the trajectory you've forced upon it. And that matters because framing is an invisible lever. Well, what do we mean? Let's dig a bit deeper. Now, when an organization asks, why should we invest in AI? They're rarely seeking the truth. They're actually just seeking permission. Did you notice the question? Why should we invest in AI? So it's already a question that's asking for permission, like a child to a parent, almost. And the machine will always grant that because it's following the path you've already cleared, because it's designed to agree with you overall. That tone operates as a psychological filter. If you ask an AI to review a product interface as a mentor, the feedback focuses on user empathy. Now, if you frame your request as a harsh critic, on the other hand, then the feedback targets architectural execution. So you see, same interface, different lens. Now let's shift the target audience from teenagers to senior executives. Now the entire narrative structure completely changes in an instant. But not because of the underlying reality, not because that's changed. No, but because the communication parameters have changed. See, this is a system problem, not a feature problem. Now take the question, how should we improve customer support? See, now that sounds completely neutral, right? But look at the underlying mechanics of the question itself. Now, if your understated assumption is reducing operational cost, the AI builds automation funnels to support your question, to give you permission to do so. Now, if your assumption is customer loyalty, it builds a high touchpoint relationship framework instead. You see, AI doesn't question your premise. It optimizes for it. Now, in product design, we see this breakdown constantly. Now, if a stakeholder asks, how do we make users click this button more? Guess what will happen? The AI will help you to optimize a button in the copy, but the AI will never ask, should this button exist at all? A human will challenge that premise. Always. Well, almost. AI works with inside them, and that's the contrasting difference. Now, poor assumptions can create incredibly convincing disasters. Just remember that statement. And that's the real story of generative tools. The machine isn't thinking, it's reflecting your priorities, your blind spots, your perspective. And that matters because speed is highly useful for us, for people like us, me and you. But speed isn't judgment. The deeper danger here is mistaking high fidelity reflection for actual understanding. Now, before I use AI for anything strategic, I always prefer to run a systematic mental audit. Now, not because I don't trust the technology, because I use the technology every day, but because I don't always trust my own framing. Now, I force myself to answer 5 specific questions. 1. What assumptions am I actively making? 2. What data point would prove my premise entirely wrong? Now, that's a really important question to ask. 3. What would a harsh critic say about this direction that I'm taking? 4. Where is the blind spot I am choosing to ignore? And then finally, number 5, and what would cause this entire idea to fail? You see, these are intentional questions. These are intentional friction steps that change the quality of the system output dramatically. Now, I've mapped this out in a complete framework, including the prompt, the structures, the self-audit checklist inside what I'd like to call a master strategy note on my Patreon. And so that's where all of our senior community members, or actually anyone, can access that. So if you want to get your hands on that, go to the Patreon, links in the description, and you can get it for yourself. Because the real shift comes from when you stop asking the machine, give me the answer, and you start asking it, challenge my thinking. So how do you actually stop AI from agreeing with you? Well, you introduce deliberate systemic friction. Stop asking it to validate your choices. Start forcing it to stress test your systems. Because the best use of an LLM isn't finding answers faster. It's expanding your mental models deeper. Now, before I wrap up, here's the UX principles lens, because this product isn't good or bad in isolation. Remember, it succeeds or fails based on how well it aligns with human behavior. Now, of course, AI will improve and continue to align more and more with human behavior. But for this analysis, 3 principles applied or mattered the most. And our first one, and our most famous one, Jacob's Law. Now, this is a really good principle because users spend most of their time on other sites, meaning that they expect yours to work the same way. Now, how does that even relate to AI? Why does that even matter? Because we instinctively treat natural language interfaces like human colleagues, right? And then we map our social expectations onto a mathematical prediction engine. And that's dangerous, right? Because we are trying to map the way in which we speak normally, right? As humans to humans, organics to organics, from organics to machines. So there is a difference here. So that's the expectation. Number 2, Postel's law. Now, what this is you have to be liberal in what you accept and conservative in what you send. But why does that matter for this? Well, the system is built to absorb all of our messy, high bias framing and quietly shape out its output to match our emotional wavelength, our exact emotional wavelength, in fact. And that, of course, is something that we have to be aware of. And number 3, Tesler's law. Every system has an inherent amount of complexity that cannot be removed, but only shifted. But why does that matter? You see, AI drastically reduces the friction of generation but it shifts the cognitive complexity directly onto our interpretation, our criticism, and our ultimate judgment. Thanks for watching. Stay present and remain curious, and I'll see you in the next one.